How can we hope to make our work stand out in a crowded marketplace? What are your techniques for doing that?
Yeah, this is good. I don't know. So let's talk about the idea of authorial voice. It's something that I remember from high school. English teachers saying, "Ooh, this has strong voice," or "This doesn't have strong voice." And I never really understood what it meant so much. I actually really like what Dean Wesley Smith has to say about voice. And oftentimes he'll talk about voice when he talks about his favorite show, which is The Voice. And I've heard him talk about this before several times, in which, The Voice is such a great example. It's not that they're looking for just a good voice. There seems to be a lot of people that can go on there and who can sing. They're looking for something different, right? So I always think of my favorite band when I was little, because my older brothers listened to them, was Boston. So when Boston released their debut album titled Boston, I think, back in, I don't know, 76 or 77, whenever that came out, it was the biggest selling debut album of all time. Now, if you were to sit around and listen to that whole album with my wife, she would say all the songs sound the same.
I think my wife would say that as well, and they'd both be wrong.
And you can find other bands kind of like that. But the thing is, at the time, I think, other than just being awesome, it was different. It just had a different sound. And Dean Wesley Smith says, that's what these judges are looking for. Yeah, they're looking for something good, but they're really looking for something different. Okay, so then how do you do that? Well, I think the worst advice can be sometimes just to tell somebody, hey, go be different. It's really hard to just go be different. Sometimes it seems like it's really hard to build an awesome house if you're given unlimited land and an unlimited budget. Instead of an awesome house, oftentimes you end up with these grotesque McMansions with different roof gables that go everywhere, and they just don't even have a sense of place. The much better way to build an awesome house is to give Frank Lloyd Wright this really odd plot of land and say, yeah, you've got this river and this water, and it kind of has to cantilever over it. It's going to be tough. I don't know how you're going to do it. And so he kind of has to react to his environment. I think that's a much better way to do something unique. Okay, so then the last thing I think of is I think of the Beatles. The Beatles learned how to play music by copying other people's music. So the way they would learn how to play a particular chord is they would go over, because they heard this one guy had this awesome way of playing. So they'd go watch the awesome guy play, and they'd try to play it just like him. And they'd keep trying to copy different people. And in the process, I think, naturally react against those people, kind of in this kind of musical dialogue. And eventually they figured out their own thing. Now, not everybody will figure out their own thing, and they'll just end up kind of sounding like everybody else. But I do think one path forward is to try, and even if it's just for your practice, try copying other people. I mean, as an exercise for writing. Like, if you love J.K. Rowling, go write a short story and try to make it the most Harry Potter thing you can possibly do. And then say, okay, I also love Stephen King. And then go write a short story that's the most Stephen King sort of thing you can do. And then maybe you're ready to write your own thing, and maybe you borrow elements of each, and voila, it's kind of your own new thing, right? I think doing something like that is not a bad way forward for a lot of people.
Chuckling because I've done exactly that. The Book of David is intentionally written in the style of Stephen King, because I've just been reading him for years. It's something I did early on. I don't do it as much now, but I know it's fairly common. I would take books that I admired and set them up, prop them beside my keyboard, and then retype them. And the idea was, even if I can't write great words, I can at least type great words, and then they'll for sure be on there. So I've got most of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire saved in an old Word file someplace where I've just retyped it and added typos. And that was a good way to kind of get some cadence and some voice down. Have you done that?
No, that's fascinating. That's actually pretty cool. I might try that sometime. Do a chapter or so and just do it to get the rhythm and the feel. That's really cool.
It's a great way to avoid the terror of actually writing, because there's nothing to be scared of. I mean, you know it's a good book. Just type it.
I know this is going to be good if I just don't mess up this period.
Exactly. Look at that. Look at this amazing thing that I have kind of produced. Now take the training wheels off and let's try it for real.
I like it. No, that's really good. That's a great exercise. I think there's a lot of things you can do like that, but I do think a problematic thing is just to tell somebody, go be unique, go find your voice. I think everybody most people need a little help in figuring out how to do that.
Plus, just uniqueness for the sake of uniqueness is not valuable.
Oh.
So tell the story that you want to tell. I usually start, and I put I wear my references on my sleeve. So if you read All Together Now a Zombie Story, it's going to read a little bit like Walking Dead fan fiction, which is why the cause of the zombie apocalypse is Kirkman soda, named after Robert Kirkman. Like, yeah, of course I'm going to do what the best zombie stories have done. Do you want a good zombie story or don't you?
Awesome. Love it. That's great.
That was actually something that I think really helped me to get over myself and be less terrified, is to take myself less seriously. And so I'm not necessarily writing for the ages. If that, I also simultaneously carry around the belief that the moment I'm dead, all of my work will become celebrated classics forever. And I won't know about it, so it's fine. And if I'm wrong, I won't know about it. It's fine.
Right.
But I was able to get over myself. Okay, well, let's not worry about what awards we're going to win. Let's not worry about being the most original thing that ever was. Let's just write the book I would most want to read. And that's what my books became.
Totally. That is so important. I've had to do the same thing. You know, I'm not going to win Newbery Awards. I'm not going to win literary awards. I'm not writing the next great American anything. I mean, for God's sakes, I wasn't a kid sitting around reading Steinbeck. I wasn't reading classics. I was reading a pile of 100 Richie Rich comic books over and over and over again. I was reading Sergeant Fury and X-Men and Scrooge McDuck, and like I was reading comic books, and I was reading the Mad Scientist Club over and over again, and I would read woodworking books that my dad had around, and I would read the encyclopedia. Like I wasn't feeding my literary soul with the greats of Western civilization. It's not what I'm writing. I'm just writing stuff that I think is fun, that I hope entertains people, and ultimately I'm writing the kind of stuff I would want to read.
Always, I have a degree in literature, and I try to imitate the classics a little bit. It's not a top priority for me. I've had to overcome my own snobbery from early on. Where was I going with that? But I also read a lot of Stephen King, a lot of Robin Cook, a lot of John Grisham, all the really popular books. And so when I went in to get my degree in literature, I kept that in mind. I was always I was the skeptic in class. I would frustrate professors because I'd say, well, yes, what you're talking about is absolutely important. These books should be celebrated. I see what made them great, why people were interested in them at the time. But I also know that people pretended to read The Scarlet Letter and actually read it by Stephen King. So that's what I wanted to gravitate toward. That's what I wanted to pay attention to.
You know, one of the great gifts that one of my English teachers did in high school was in the middle of the year, he said, okay, we've been reading a lot of classics. And I said, sometimes I know it can be daunting. And so he said, that's why we're going to take a break and we're going to read this book called The Abyss. And he gave us all a copy of The Abyss. And it was just such a great like break to just read something that was really good, written by a really great writer, but it wasn't quite at the same level as Jane Eyre, right? I mean, this isn't Wuthering Heights, this is The Abyss. But I'll never forget that. You know, it was great.
Something that forever changed my perspective was I used to struggle with Charles Dickens. I just didn't get it. And then I switched to audiobooks of Charles Dickens, and hearing it made all the difference. And I realized, oh, well, that's because when Charles Dickens was writing this stuff, most of the population was illiterate. So it was they were going to the pubs to hear somebody perform. And it makes all the difference. Then those long speeches make sense because that's somebody going to ham it up as an actor.
That's a
and
great
you could
point.
do 100 pages before a stranger walks into town and the plot really gets started because there isn't competition. People aren't shutting you off for Netflix. Or at the time they weren't.
And then, man, if you can just hang around for his endings, you know, boom.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, he killed those.
Yeah.
But some of those beginnings were a little bit rough. We're at a time I just don't need 100 pages of setup before the story starts. But if I can listen to a great audiobook narrator get it to me, okay, I can passively accept that.
Yeah, great